What's up, everybody? Unrested back again, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that people have started to bring up just from reading about different subjects on Japan, websites and newspapers, magazines, etc. People are starting to ask me that they're hearing things about that the education program in Japan has been declining, and is that really true? Because most countries, they have the idea that Japan is above and beyond a lot of the education in other first world countries, and this is because in the past Japan does actually have that kind of claim. It really was above and beyond a lot of the education in other countries, and there was a time when education here in Japan was extremely strict and extremely disciplined. Unfortunately, now we've kind of reached a point in Japan where it's not really the case anymore, especially here in Osaka City schools where I teach. I've talked to a lot of teachers who I taught along with. These are Japanese teachers, of course, and they talk about how about 40 or 50 years ago, things were extremely strict, almost to the point of being actually too strict. Corporal punishment was actually used to enforce different disciplines and codes within schools, and even some of the teachers have stories for me about some of the strict teachers that they had in the past and the kind of things that they would do, and kind of how it's evolved and how it's changed and the reasons why. And there's actually a major story behind why the discipline became so lax. But let me begin first by saying some of the first stories I heard were stories of teachers who said that when they were students, their own teachers were so strict that one teacher said she dyed her hair a different color, which is against the rules, even today still in junior high schools. And she was dragged to the front of the class by her hair by the teacher, and the teacher pulled out a chunk and showed the class and said, "This is why we don't dye our hair." I remember hearing that story. I was really quite surprised. Obviously, that is a case of discipline being too extreme. Other teachers just told me about how teachers would actually physically punch them and hit them if they were misbehaving, talking, sleeping, etc. in class. Now, of course, these are examples of discipline that are way too strong, and I don't really think corporal punishment is necessary in order to have disciplined students. On the other hand, now we've actually reached a point in Osaka City where it's actually hard to teach due to the fact that there is little to no discipline with students. And the reason for this is actually due to the story that is very well known that happened many, many years ago. This is not any time recent, but students have a time that they need to be to school, and 8:30 is the cutoff time for that tardiness, for being tardy. And some schools close the gate. There's a big iron gate on every single public school, and they would close these gates as soon as that time was reached, and that would be kind of the cutoff point, both a mental cutoff point and a physical cutoff point for students to continue to go to school during the day. And anyone who didn't get in after that time was actually not allowed to enter the school. And this is, like I said, this is many years ago. This rule doesn't exist anymore. Kids just show up tardy and they get yelled at a little bit for being tardy. So a coach at a school, usually the enforcer of discipline most times, the coach, was closing the gate at the 8:30 point. And he was closing it in a very aggressive and I suppose harsh way, to the point that the students rushing in, one final student tried to get in before the cutoff time, and their head was actually smashed between the wall and the gate. And this caused the kid to go to a coma and eventually die. The school was sued, the coach was fired, a government meeting was held, and discipline in schools was discussed. And it was kind of completely reformatted after that. And ever since that point, schools have become more and more lax on discipline due to the fact that they fear the negative results of parents complaining. And it's actually reached a point now where Japan has coined the term monster parents, meaning even when the kid does something bad now in school, parents come to complain that the teachers aren't doing their job. It can even be stuff like a kid starts a fight or even attacks a teacher, and instead of disciplining their own child, parents will come to the school and yell at the school. And unfortunately, this is one of the problems that Osaka City is facing that has made education so bad. There are still a few schools, such as places in Tennoji and Fuminosato, that have great education, but for the most part, and this is something I can say from my own experience of teaching in multiple wards, multiple districts, multiple schools on multiple levels, is that it's gotten to a point where the kids kind of control the classroom and the teacher doesn't. They can get up, they can walk around, they can throw stuff at the teacher, they'll yell back at a teacher, they'll throw stuff at the teacher. I myself have had to put up with this, and the only way I've kind of figured out to meet it head on is not with anger, but to actually just physically wait to continue my lesson. And I will sit there and wait and ask when I have their attention again. And this is pretty much all I can do. It's really, as an assistant teacher, it's the Japanese teacher's job to discipline the students. It's not actually part of my contract. And so I actually have to physically sit there and wait until I can continue. And this has actually reached a point now where it's gotten almost ridiculous at some schools trying to teach. Especially in northern Osaka areas, schools are really bad, and I've had to deal with a lot of problems with troubling students, to the point that we had one that would come into our teacher's room and knock stuff off of desks because he didn't want to go to class, and he'd have to physically fight with teachers. I myself never got into a fight with a student, but I'd seen it happen. And later I asked about that child's predicament after he finished school, and he had actually ended up in jail. So you can only imagine the kind of home life that kid had as well. Nonetheless, this is kind of the problems we're dealing with right now as far as social problems in schools and the education system in Osaka. So that might be something you also might face if you do decide to teach in this area of Japan. Everything is not hunky-dory, kids are not perfect students, and there's not very strict discipline like there used to be a long time ago in Japan. So be prepared for that, and be prepared to have to come up with some ideas for not combating, but facing the students who will be disruptive to your class. My own advice is to not meet those angry students with anger yourself, or you'll just cause more conflict. Try to think of peaceful ways and exciting ways to make your class more fun and enjoyable. Until next time, I'm Unrested. This is JFAQ. I'll talk to you again.